16. I'm guessing as we're looking at this, we're somewhere maybe midway or a little after between Jesus' ministry. We know it's a 3-year time period from what scriptures show us, so maybe he's been with these guys for a year and a half to 2 years. That gives you an understanding, at least, that they've been with him long enough to know pretty much about him. We'll find out that they hadn't known everything yet. But enough to know that this is the one worth following. And they've been through a lot in doing so. And they have observed along the way, as anybody that's walking along with Jesus would know, that the religious leaders of God's own people didn't like Jesus for the most part. A few might along the way, but they were jealous of Jesus. He didn't do things their way. Very sincere person Jesus was, and as Jesus talks about in book of Matthew 23 rather, he sees them as the majority of them being hypocrites. So they're at odds with one another. As Jesus is talking with his apostles, to cause them to stop and think about who he is and eventually what it's going to cost them, he starts out in verse 13 of Matthew 16 with a question. He's in a region of Caesarea Philippi, and he looks at his disciples and he says, "Who do men say that I, the Son of Man, am?" Now, that phrase, Son of Man, is a term that Jesus will borrow out of the Old Testament, which is directly referring to him as being the Messiah. So when he calls that, he just said, "Who do people say that I am?" And he uses that term, Son of Man. So they respond, verse 14, and says, "Some say John the Baptist, some Elijah, and others Jeremiah or one of the prophets." All great people. Then he looks at him and he says, "Now, who do you say that I am?" Out of all those people out there, you've been with me all the way through. Some of that multitude barely know me, but they know I'm doing something, and they see me with a crowd, and so maybe they think I'm a prophet, but how about you? You gave up everything. You're following me. Do you know who I am? It's interesting because it took a special revelation for that to come out. Verse 16, Simon Peter answered, and he said, "You're the Christ." And that word's not a name. That means anointed one. So that directly referring to Jesus being the one that God had always had set up to come. He's the anointed one. Then he adds this, the Son of the living God. That was new. Coming out of his mouth, and I'm not sure before he spit it out that he really knew what he was saying. But it comes out. Verse 17, Jesus answered and said to him, "Blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, or son of Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you." In other words, you hadn't figured that out on your own, but my Father who is in heaven. So, special revelation at that moment, or somewhere close to that, he knows he's the Son of God. He's not just the Messiah. And that'd be enough. Not just the anointed one, the one that God had always prophesied, but now this turns out to not just be some great prophet of God. This is God's Son that came. Well, what a difference. Verse 18, "And I say unto you," Jesus says, "that you're Peter." He's talking out of Peter. "And upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades shall not prevail against it." Now the two words, Jesus is doing a play on words here in the Greek. Peter, Petros, masculine. Then he uses the word rock, Petra, feminine. So he's making the play on words. You're Peter. Upon this foundation of what you've said, this Petra, not Petros, but Petra, I'm going to build my church. I'm going to give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. That prophecy came about when the apostles, all 12 of them, preached on the day of Pentecost. And they revealed to the people who who Jesus was and gave to them God's plan for how to be saved. So whatever was going to be opened up or loosed was there by their preaching. Now here's really what I want to focus on. Verse 20, then he commanded his disciples that they should not tell, or should tell no one that Jesus was the Christ. Not yet, but here's what he says to them. From that time on, Jesus began to show to his disciples, not to the rest of the people, that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things from the elders and chief priests and scribes, and be killed and be raised on the third day. Now Peter, who had it all together because God was giving him revelation, doesn't like that. Verse 22, then Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. Oh, Peter, you're really stepping out of your boundaries there. Well, he was thinking he was doing what was good for God, good for the Lord. So he began to rebuke him, saying, far be it from you, Lord, that this should happen to you. But he turned to him and he said to him, Peter, get behind me, Satan. You are an offense to me. For you are, not mindful of the things of God, but the things of men. Now let's look at this whole picture here for just a moment. They thought they knew it really well. Peter speaks out with this new piece of revelation because God is helping him. You're also the Son of God. And, maybe they're backing up thinking, wow, I didn't comprehend. Should have figured it out when he calmed the sea. Should have figured it out when he raised the dead. But now for sure. And then as he began to talk about that greatness, all of a sudden he just pulls the rug out from underneath him and he says, but I'm going to be dying soon. And it's like, oh, well, wait a minute. That doesn't sync up. We're moving toward greatness, not toward dying. But the greatness would come by his dying. And see, that's what Peter didn't understand. That's why Peter was against Jesus going to Jerusalem. You see, as human beings, by ourselves, we can't figure it out. We wouldn't know who Jesus really was if it wasn't revealed to us, and we wouldn't know what to do. We wouldn't comprehend what God would have in mind for us unless it was revealed. But here we have God's revelation given to us and directly telling us, point, don't try to reason on your own in life. Not in salvation of how to obtain it, get it from the Scriptures. Nor in your guidance or direction or anything else there. Because our reasoning, however good it might seem, however accurate it might be, could be way off track, even from Satan, is the way the Lord pointed it here. Well, on top of all that, then after he tells them all of this, he looks at them, verse 24, and he says to his disciples, and if anyone desires to come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. So not only, Peter, am I telling you you're dead wrong, I'm going to Jerusalem, but if you're really going to be a follower, you've got to come with me. And you've got to do it too. And then Jesus adds this, verse 25 and 26, for whoever desires to save his life will lose it physically. Whoever loses his life physically, for my sake, will find it. And then he throws out a question. For what profit is it to a man if he gains the whole world? Talking about things that interfere with our spirituality, materialism there. What profit is it if a man would gain the whole world and yet lose his soul? Or what will a man give in exchange for his soul? Satan's out there bargaining. He'll bargain with reason. He'll bargain with goods, with money, with materialism, anything he can. He'll bargain. He'll get you to think this is what you need. This is what will take you there. This is the way to go. And the way to go is described simply and directly by the words of Jesus. Make sure you're on that path. Make sure you've chosen salvation the way the Scriptures lay it out. Peter talks in Acts chapter 2, verse 38 about repenting and being baptized for the forgiveness of sins. The word repentance, pretty tough word. It's got to change. Baptism is a pretty easy thing, just to be immersed. And then do it for the right reasons, forgiveness of sins. But that hard part is getting your life in order, getting it going, and then keeping it on track. So, to close tonight with a couple questions. Number one, are you on track? Have you made that decision, that commitment? And then there, if you've made it, somewhere along the line, have you gotten off track? Don't look at reasoning. Don't look at man's behavior, man's thinking, because they'll really take it the wrong direction. Compare your life to what God says in His Word. And if it's not right, get right tonight. We sing a song to encourage you to get right.